Tonight, implosion. Trump's former lawyer admits to stealing from the Trump Organization.
Stealing $60,000 through fraud, which would be larceny in New York State, is more serious of a crime than falsifying business.
Is a guilty verdict even possible anymore? Mudslinging.
I'm going to demand a drug test, too, by the way. I am. No, I really am.
And the race for the White House gets personal and weird, and it's still only May. With a combined age of 158, why both of these men are acting a lot like children. And bad things happen to bad people. Iran's president dies when his helicopter crashes in the mountains. Why the Biden administration says they're mourning his loss. Welcome to the Ferris Show on television. Hope you had a wonderful weekend. It's Monday. There's a lot of news. Speaking of fair, to be fair, there aren't really words in the English language to describe how bad a day the Trump prosecutors, the New York prosecutors, Alvin Bragg, had today in court. The prosecution's star witness is not only an admitted liar and a convicted felon. Today, he admitted to stealing from the man he is trying to put into jail. The defense pressed Michael Cohen on money that was supposed to be sent to a tech company, but Cohen kept more than half of it for himself. Trump attorney Todd Blanche asked point blank, "So you stole from the Trump Organization, right?" To which Cohen responded, "I did." And when asked if he had been prosecuted for larceny or made to pay it back, Cohen replied, "No, sir." Michael Cohen says his bonus was being cut from $150,000 to $50,000, and taking the money was, quote, like it was self-help. And even media that would really like to see Donald Trump convicted on this admits it's hard to come back from such testimony.
And I have to say, I'm still kind of reeling from the revelation that Michael Cohen stole money from the Trump Organization.
To show that he actually stole from the Trump Organization, even as they were structuring a deal to pay him $35,000 a month, is an enormous big deal.
And by the way, the fact that he was never charged with larceny is important because stealing $60,000 through fraud, which would be larceny in New York State, is more serious of a crime than falsifying business records.
With us now, Catherine Fung, senior writer for Newsweek, who was at the trial today. Michael DeSharo, New York City criminal defense lawyer. Michael, I know it is hard to surprise attorneys. You set the bar for Michael Cohen's cross-examination very high. Has this even exceeded your expectations?
I was blown away by the revelation that he committed larceny against his own client, because also I had a client who stole half of that in Manhattan from a news station, funny enough, $30,000, and he was fully prosecuted, and we had to deal with that case. And the fact that the DA's office, the prosecutors didn't prep him for this kind of cross is shocking. Maybe Michael Cohen hid it from them. I'm not sure how this went, but this is more of a disaster than I could have expected.
Wow. Catherine, what was it like when that moment happened? Was there gasps? Was there surprise? Is this like Law and Order, or was everybody just kind of like ho-hum?
No, people were definitely surprised. And I think even more so, he admitted that he stole the money because he was unhappy with his bonus that year. So not only was it that he just took the money, he also had a reason to take it, and it was because he was unhappy he didn't get as big of a bonus as he normally does.
So, Michael, where does the trial go from here? We have Michael Cohen's picture up here. Without Michael Cohen's credibility, whatever case the DA thought they had, they don't have. So how do they resurrect things from here, or is there a chance we get a directed verdict from the judge before closing arguments?
Well, one, they're going to try to rehabilitate, redirect Michael Cohen. I don't know how you do that. Two, the judge will never give, Judge Merchan will never give a directed verdict in this case. He doesn't want that responsibility. This responsibility is going to lie with the jury. So the jury is going to have to decide, what if they at all believe Michael Cohen? What else can Michael Cohen do? What else is going to, I'm waiting for a Michael Cohen story that he's kicked somebody's puppy down the road. That's the only thing left this guy can do. I've never seen such a damaged witness in 26 years of practice now, and 6 as a prosecutor.
Wow. Catherine, Michael just mentioned the jury, so it all comes down to the jury, right? 12 men and women. Juror number 1, married without kids, works in sales. We've got a couple of lawyers. We've got some who get their news from TikTok, some from Fox News, some from MSNBC, on and on and on. You've been watching the jury for the whole trial. What's been their reactions to some of these moments, particularly to Michael Cohen today?
I think they're very attentive. It's kind of shocking to see that sometimes they're more engaged than some of the other people sitting in the courtroom. They don't seem to bore, even though some of the testimony can be a little bit dry. And so it'll be interesting to see where they come out on the other end of this.
All right, so, Michael, I think it's pretty clear where you stand, which is that the prosecution has not met the burden of proof beyond a reasonable doubt that Donald Trump engaged in the fraud that he's been charged with of falsifying business records. What, if we're going to give the prosecution the most generous of readings here, what have they proven?
That Donald Trump had sex with a woman and then she received $130,000 from the Trump organization. That's it. Those are the facts. They've proven that to me, right? I believe Stormy Daniels, and you don't give somebody $130,000 for not having sex with you. So, fine, they've proven that. It is not a crime to have sex or to simply give somebody money. So I don't know how it's going to. Remember, Leland, we always talk about this. Defense needs one juror, just one.
Yeah. Look, and you look through that list of 12 jurors, there's a lot of them. Think about juror number 7, married with kids, works as a civil litigator, gets news from the New York Times, Washington Post, New York Post, Washington Post, and NPR. Michael, the people on the jury, the other jurors are going to look to the lawyers on the jury. We know that. In a case like this, where there is we don't like Donald Trump factor, which is probably pretty pervasive in New York. With 12 people, you're going to get a lot who don't like Donald Trump. Does it work in Donald Trump's favor that he has 2 lawyers who at least are supposed to say, hey, it doesn't matter whether we like Donald Trump or not, we've got to follow what the jury instructions say?
I think so. I said from the beginning, who I want in this case are smart jurors and people that are able to think critically. And we also don't know if these lawyers join forces, they're going to be very powerful if they're going one way or another. If they split, if they're leaders of their own camp, which happens in a jury, then you're simply on your way down to a hung jury. So it really depends how these 2 lawyers see this case. And if they like each other, juries become their own little worlds, and they become best friends or they become mortal enemies. I've seen jurors leave the courthouse and go out to have dinner. They become a cohesive unit, or it is a battle that goes on until they tell the judge, we can't come to a verdict.
All right, so you think about the testimony they're listening to. The other big witness today, Robert Costello, Michael Cohen's former attorney, advised Cohen in 2018 after Cohen's home was raided by the FBI. He testified before Republicans in the House. But this is what he said today. Michael Cohen said numerous times that President Trump knew nothing about those payments, that he did this on his own. He repeated that numerous times. Catherine, how credible did he seem on the stand?
So actually, when he came out, people gasped. That was one reaction from the courtroom, because people weren't expecting him to be called. No one knew who the defense was planning to call as a witness. And he had great things to say about Cohen, really, because he was very straight in his story. And in comparison to Cohen, we know Cohen's lied, and you can tell he gets cagey with his answers. So he was kind of the opposite of that.
Interesting. Michael, I'll give you the last word. Does Donald Trump testify or not?
Not a chance in our heaven. Not a chance.
Okay, Catherine, as you're watching this, Catherine, obviously everyone would love it more than anything. Have you seen any indications that he will?
It doesn't seem like he will at this point. They did say that they plan to be finished after Costello, and that's going to be tomorrow. They don't plan to call another witness at this time.
All right, so they're done after tomorrow with Costello. We got closing arguments starting next Tuesday, so there's going to be a long break for everybody to digest. Michael, I guess I'm going to ask you one last question. You think about this timeline. You're going to have the jurors go away for Memorial Day weekend. Friends get together, family gets together, politics is going to come. You know that's going to happen. Is it fair to Donald Trump to say, hey, look, we're not going to have closing arguments and then begin deliberations before Memorial Day weekend when the jury could be so influenced?
Well, we don't know which way the jury's going to be influenced depending on where they go and who they speak to. I'm not sure why there's such a delay, but I don't see that being a huge disadvantage. Michael Cohen needed to be stopped. Michael Cohen needed to be cross-examined to the hilt. He was. Mr. Costello was just an extra character that I don't think needed to come in. He also antagonized the judge, which wasn't a good idea. But I don't think this is a disadvantage for him. Michael Cohen is the star. If you have to believe 1% of Michael Cohen, that may not be possible.
And it seems as though they have to believe 100% of Michael Cohen, almost. All right, Michael, Catherine, thank you both very much. We appreciate it. Trial continues tomorrow. There's the legal side of this. There's the political side of this. President Biden is trying to do everything he can on the political side while Donald Trump is otherwise engaged, you might say. President Biden says America is racist, and Donald Trump is going to make things worse. Can Joe Biden tell us anything we don't know about Donald Trump?
He just can't accept he lost, and he lost it. That's why on January 6th, what happened? Every legal avenue Trump tried to challenge the election failed, so it unleashed an insurrection. And now he's running again. He's not only obsessed with about losing 2020, he's clearly unhinged.
New polling shows mom is outraged, and they're ready to fight. How Harrison Butker's graduation speech changed America's political landscape.
Some of you may go on to lead successful careers in the world, but I would venture to guess that the majority of you are most excited about your marriage and the children you will bring into this world.
Live pictures of the White House just down the road from us on Pennsylvania Avenue, a beautiful May evening. Joe Biden has changed his strategies up just a little bit in terms of how he is running against Donald Trump. At least out on the stump, Biden is trying to out-Trump Trump.
He's not only obsessed with about losing 2020, he's clearly unhinged. There's a national effort to ban books, not to write history, but to erase history. They don't see you in the future of America.
It was President Biden speaking at a historically black college. As NBC rightly points out, Biden pledged to end this uncivil war. Nearly 4 years later, it still rages on. Hugh Hewitt is here, lawyer, law professor, and the most influential talk radio host in America. Good to see you, sir. Thank you.
Hi, Leland. Thank you for that praise. I appreciate it.
Well, we're fair and accurate here. And to be fair, Biden pledged to end the uncivil war. Nearly 4 years later, it still rages on. The Civil War raging on benefits Donald Trump or Joe Biden?
Right now, everything is benefiting Donald Trump. I listened to the Morehouse State speech, the one you just played there, Leland. It was more of the mumble shout that we got at the State of the Union. And I do believe that the president's infirmity is increasingly leading him into this spiral of shouting at people and then alternatively getting confused as to the point he was making or messing up on what the prompter would have him say. Many students in the audience turned their back on the president because they're upset with his position on Israel. Many people in the audience were simply confused. I don't know if you have the clip or not. The president said when he was vice president and the COVID times were tough. Of course, he wasn't vice president during COVID. I really do think he's gone from infirmity to incoherence. The next step is incapacity. So Donald Trump is winning simply by not losing every single day.
Well, a common theme on this show is never underestimate Republicans' ability to screw things up. Something
Good
I know
point.
that you've talked about often. Thank you. To that end, is Donald Trump missing an opportunity? And I say that with some sound bites in mind, primarily the one from Ronald Reagan in 1984. Take a listen.
It's morning again in America. And under the leadership of President Reagan, our country is prouder and stronger and better. Why would we ever want to return to where we were less than 4 short years ago?
Is Donald Trump missing an opportunity to become more positive and to end the grievance fest, to give middle America a little bit of hope?
Leland, I go back and forth in my head because everything I've ever suggested about Donald Trump, he's done the opposite, and he's always won when I thought he was going to lose, and he lost when I thought he was going to win. I think he has an intuitive sense of where the American middle class is, the great silent majority that he referred to last week, which was a Nixon phrase from 1969, and the former president brought it up on my radio show last week, and he talked about the great silent majority. He intuits which way it is to go, and right now it's not morning in America. Right now it's pretty doggone dark in America, and it's dark because of the divisions, and it's dark because of the crime, it's dark because the border is not controlled, and it's dark because we have an infirm president who sometimes doesn't even know how to get off the stage. So I think that Donald Trump isn't missing an opportunity so much as he's in court 4 days a week with lawfare hobbling him. When he gets out of that courtroom, I hope he remembers to be as funny as he was in Minnesota. I don't know if you saw that, Leland. It's like a stand-up routine. He's an incredible performer, and it was funny and genuinely so. I think it was much better than the NRA speech, in fact. So when he goes back out on the trail, all he has to do is not lose right now because he's so far ahead, 12 points ahead in Nevada. My goodness, 12 points ahead in Nevada. That's almost an unbelievable number, but it's the New York Times Siena poll, so there must be something behind it. I can only imagine what's going to come out after June 27th, because I think former President Trump is going to dominate that debate. I don't care who moderates it or how long they go, because President Biden has got a capacity problem. And so I expect that's what Donald Trump is hitting Joe Biden on, right, is the capacity problem, hence talking about the drugs, a drug test, on and on and on, which invariably a number of Republicans echoed exactly what the president said. Take a listen.
I'm going to demand a drug test, too, by the way. I am. No, I really am.
He's being manufactured and puppeteered by the Democratic Party.
The American people need to understand if they're giving him some injection.
Okay, so let's be reasonable about this. There's going to be no drug test. We all know right. That. And I'm wondering if the Republicans aren't walking into the very same trap they walked into for the State of the Union, right? Because they set the bar for Joe Biden so low. The same congressman, he's not going to be able to talk for 30 minutes. He's going to fall over at the teleprompter, on and on and on and on. He got up, he spoke for an hour, and he far exceeded expectations. You pointed out, was there some moments you were like, wow, gee, I wonder if he knows what he's saying? Sure. But this is an expectations game that Republicans keep screwing up.
Well, I'm going to disagree with you a bit, Leland. Back to the red wedding speech, which preceded the State of the Union. That was the first mumble shout speech. The State of the Union was a mumble shout speech. The debate won't allow him to mumble shout because he will be. You've done debates. I've done debates. They're 6 feet away from you, especially when there's no audience in the room. He's going to lower his voice, and he's going to get lost. I really don't think President Biden can succeed in anything remotely like a square setting, meaning a fair setting. And I actually ran through ChatGPT this weekend, what 10 questions should Jake Tapper and Dan Abash ask in order to elicit the most response beneficial to the voters? And it's the same 10 things that you and I would ask. Maybe we get a couple of them different. Interestingly enough, it did not mention abortion. I think the over-under on abortion in this debate is 4 questions and follow-ups. But if all the former president does is not get in Joe Biden's way, Joe Biden will lose this debate. He is not capable of actually carrying on a conversation with 3 other people for 90 minutes to 2 hours. It's not possible. It's not because of drugs. It's because he's 81, soon to be 82 years old, and it just shows.
Well, you said the magic words. If Donald Trump is able to get out of his own way, which sometimes he's been able to, other times he is not. Hugh, it's good to see you. I know you got an early morning wake-up call. We appreciate you staying up late for us. Thank you.
Thank you, Leland. Have a good one.
All right, we'll be listening. A father in Alabama now faces jail time for not apologizing to a police officer. He paid his fine for a traffic ticket, but the judge wants more. Is this proof rural Alabama still lives in Jim Crow? You might have missed this if you were not on your phone over the weekend. I wasn't. It was a great respite. But over the weekend, mothers across America took to Twitter proclaiming they like being mothers. Among the tweets, I have a BA, master's, and a doctorate, and I'm proud of my career. I'm successful, well-respected. But above all else, I'm a wife and a mother. First, and if I had to choose to give up, it's not even a decision. Being a mom is the most important thing I ever did. Fully agree. 3 degrees by 30. Work full-time. Still very much into my role as a wife who cooks, cleans, etc. I graduated from Marquette University with a BS. Got my MD from the Uniformed Services University. Became a board-certified OBGYN. And am now a major in the United States Air Force. But being a mom to 2 kids with a 3rd on the way, with a husband I love, is the greatest thing I've ever done. Hi, my name is Rupal. I'm a Johns Hopkins educated, double board certified and licensed practicing physician, but building my family, our legacy is my greatest honor. I agree with Harrison Butker, more wives and mothers, please. And that was the magic words. The tweets all come in response to Harrison Butker's, he's a kicker for the Kansas City Chiefs, his graduation speech last weekend.
How many of you are sitting here now about to cross this stage and are thinking about all the promotions and titles you are going to get in your career? Some of you may go on to lead successful careers in the world, but I would venture to guess that the majority of you are most excited about your marriage and the children you will bring into this world.
Butker got crucified by the media. Somehow he was out of touch with 2024, they said. As usual, Mom got the last laugh. Joining us now, former White House official, Bush 43, former Homeland Security official, Ashley Davis, Democratic strategist, former advisor to Bill and Hillary Clinton, Richard Goodstein. Nice to see you both. Sure. Ladies first here. Of course. Is there, well, that's very general.
Absolutely.
There we go.
This is always a tough topic for boys to talk
All right,
about.
so is there a silent majority of mothers that have been awakened here?
Absolutely, and I do think that this is the coast. So you have the East and you have the West, that was something that most people were thinking in the East and West Coast, that was not a good woman, let me hear your war topic. However, I would say as a mom who's a working mom, who's been a working mom from the beginning, my most important thing that I've ever done was being a mom to a 15-year-old son, but I want to teach him that I'm a strong woman and a working woman, and even though he's the most important thing, there's so many other things. But yes, they did awaken it, and I would say most of the country feel that way, and not how, Leland, the media, but also kind of the coast is what I say, or the more liberal.
You've got progressive America here and traditional America here. Richard, the very same people who are out there attacking Harrison Butker and also attacking a lot of these women who've come out and said this and supported him, they're the same people who are supporting Hamas on college campuses and marching around, and they are the very same people, at least from the elite world, who used to hang out with P. Diddy all the time. I'm wondering if the way the conversation about moms and women needs to change.
So I think Hamas and P. Diddy have zero to do with this conversation. Butker should be the avatar for MAGA. So when people say, make America great, when was that? I guess, to listen to him, it's when we had no birth control. It's when we had no IVF. It's certainly when we had no abortion. We didn't have Pride Month. And when, indeed, women's place was in the kitchen and having babies, because that, according to him, was the single most important thing they could do in their life. And I'm not diminishing it by any means, but there was
but do you win voters by making fun of the people who also believe that?
So there was a Harvard Institute of Politics study of 18 to 29-year-olds. 12% of the youth said that for women, the most important thing they could be doing, this is not post-Butker, this was a poll that was done a while back, would be to be a homemaker. Okay, so all I'm saying is he's not speaking to what people think. He's thinking to what people thought in the 50s.
Or maybe, to be fair, maybe to what his audience, right, was. He was speaking to a conservative Catholic college. Okay, so sure. if we look at where the polling is, Fox News poll 2024, all women Biden 48, Trump 49, 2020, all women Biden 57, Trump 42. If Harrison Butker is the avatar for MAGA, Ashley, how do you explain these numbers?
Yeah, I mean, those numbers actually surprised me, and I would love to know where the numbers come from, because I do think, to your defense, Rich, that the abortion issue is going to be a very big issue with women, especially suburban women. And also, I also think there's a thing that women don't like men telling them how they feel, one way or the other. And so I think that there is going to be a problem, and there's more numbers.
It's hard to imagine we need to be told that over and over and over again.
But I do think that if you look at the suburban women, just from an election point of view, Trump has a really big problem there, and he has to figure out how to deal with it, but you had Nikki Haley, who is a pro-life Republican, who's talked about abortion. However, she was not isolating even moderate or some Democrats of how she talked about it.
So that same poll, Fox News, October 2020, so this is poll number to poll number, Biden was at 61% among suburban women. He's now down to 54. Richard, if Joe Biden's going to win re-election, that's got to be at 64.
Correct. So one quick thing about the polls. If you look at pollsters who do all voters, it's favorable for Trump. Then you go registered voters, likely voters, actual voters. We see how actual people are voting. We saw these abortion referenda in ruby red states like Kansas and Ohio, where the pro-abortion side is winning 60-40. And we're seeing testimony in the Stormy Daniels trial. Remember, he said about Melania to Stormy Daniels, if she hears about this, who cares? I'll be out on the market, and how long will that be?
But then,
he talks dismissively.
This is already baked into how women think about Donald Trump, isn't it, Ashley?
Yes, I don't think there's any surprise, and he's not going to get those voters back. However, if you look at the numbers in regards to the economy and the border, some of those suburban women are still going to go to Trump because they trust him more than what's happening right now. So.
But there was no red wave. And the reason was because ultimately, between Dobbs and abortion and democracy, however Biden's poll numbers were so bad, and the economy, in their view, was not what it should be.
I just want to, you make a good point, right? 2022, Republicans way underperformed what people thought. I'm seeing you nodding along. That said, Biden's poll numbers at the time were approval number polls. These are who are you going to vote for polls. And those are different things. Those should bake in what you're talking about.
Well, again, we'll find out. Again, I think when you look at likely voter polls, it's a different outcome. That New York Times poll that got ballyhooed was about registered voters, okay? If you look at likely voter polls, the Reuters Ipsos poll had nationally Biden up 3 at the same time that the New York Times poll that got all the attention had Trump up. So, again, I think that this business that Trump's ahead in the polls and Biden's, no, it's a fiction. There's a narrative. I get it, but it just happens not to square with what most of the polling is showing about likely voters.
Oh, fair. Okay, so that's a polling argument. If we go back to sort of where we started here, which is how Harrison Butker became such a lightning rod, why do you think this didn't start with conservatives jumping on the Harrison Butker bandwagon? It didn't start with suburban moms or moderates jumping on it. It started with this sort of massive liberal attack of this guy who gave a speech at a conservative Catholic college in nowhere, Kansas, that had he not said these things and not been a Kansas City Chiefs Super Bowl kicker, nobody would have cared, to the point that the Kansas City Star, whatever you think of the newspaper as it is, hardly a newspaper of record, but they suggested in one op-ed replacing him with a female kicker. Harrison Butker is not Patrick Mahomes, meaning the quarterback. He's a special teams player. That gives him less leverage with the team. They could trade him for a solid kicker, or they could make a statement by signing a woman to kick.
Well, I don't know about that, but I mean, whatever. That's not even the issue.
You're not going to talk football?
I will if it's about the Steelers only. But I think, though, that the main point here is what we miss living in Washington, D.C., is that, and that group of people is how Donald Trump gets elected. They don't like the liberal media. They don't like people telling them what to do. And they don't want to be made fun of for being a mom.
Well, he got elected losing by 3 million votes once, and he lost by 7 million the next time. So he's not quite had this great record of getting elected by all that much, okay? And I'm saying that most people disagree. Most women disagree. They know what he thinks, and you may be right that that's baked in. I think it's baked in a bad way. It's why since 2018, suburban women have fled self-identified Republicans, people who to this day hate voting Democratic because they're Republicans, but they can't stand Trump.
Okay, I feel like you're going to bring back 2000 and Bush v. Gore, and
no,
we
not
lost
yet.
Then.
No. We're gonna save that for October. It was nice to see both of you.
Nice
as always.
seeing you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Of course.
Iran's president died after his helicopter crashed in the mountains. Tragic. So why did the United States issue a statement mourning a man known as the Butcher of Tehran? for not saying he's sorry to a police officer. Reginald Brooks paid a $200 ticket in municipal court for speeding, but the judge added something almost unheard of to the court order. Judge Nicholas Bull of Ozark, Alabama, the father of 2 kids, was ordered to write an apology letter to the police officer who ticketed him. If he doesn't, he's going to be jailed for 30 days. The issues, Reginald told the police officer to get his donkey self, didn't say donkey, but used another word for it, out of the way after writing the ticket so he could get his kids to school. He didn't use the word donkey, as you can see on the screen. Reginald Burks is with us, his attorney David Harrison as well. Gentlemen, we appreciate you both being here. David, I want to start with you, big picture. We have a picture of the judge here. We called and asked him for comment, asked him to come on. He refused. Judge Nicholas Bull. Forget whether he has the right to do this for a second. Have you ever even heard, not just of this judge, but of any judge ordering something like this?
No, I have been practicing law 33 years, predominantly criminal defense. I've never heard of it. Not at all.
It's crazy. Reginald, the reason we are having you on, my fiance heard about your story and was outraged by it because you were driving your kids to school at 5 o'clock in the morning. The officer wasn't using his radar gun. He had you on cruise. He said he set his cruise control and figured out that you were speeding, and then pulled you over. Are you sorry you yelled at him and said what you said?
No, sir.
No?
No, sir.
Okay, fair enough. You think that this would be an issue if you were white?
Probably not. Well, I mean, down here where we're at, most of the time, all you see is black African Americans getting arrested or locked up or ticketed for something crazy or out the way for no reason anyway. So we used to it down here. I'm just sick of it.
All right, so David, Reginald, just tell us real quick how this happened. You were pulled over. The officer wrote you the ticket, and then you said what you said to him?
Yeah, I was pulled over. He wrote me a ticket. He stood at the car. He wouldn't move in front of my mirror on my car, and I kept asking him to move, and he wouldn't move. So I told him, eventually, I just told him, hey, man, get your ass out of the way, cause I can go take my kids to school. They're already late because of you. And he just kept standing there. So I go to court, and all this stuff happened at court.
I think
so you're really willing to go to jail for 30 days? You're willing to go to jail for 30 days?
Yes, for my rights. I can go to jail for 60, 30 days, whatever they want me to do. As long as I can prove my point about we got rights. If we don't stand up for them, we won't never have them.
Well, it's hard to argue with that. David, what are the options here? Is there any appeal or any way to have the judge change his mind?
Well, first of all, I want you to understand that he was doing 28 in a 25-mile-an-hour zone, 3 miles over the limit. Secondarily, June the 4th, we are to report back to court, and if he doesn't apologize or write the letter, he's going to be incarcerated. At that point, we feel like that his rights will be violated. Alabama's in the 11th Circuit. And in the 11th Circuit, there's a plethora of cases, specifically McDonough versus Garcia, indicates that profane language to a police officer is protected speech under the Constitution of the United States of America. And it can never be used as disorderly conduct, etc. But what we have to understand here is Mr. Burks was charged with speeding. And again, 3 miles over the limit. So you understand what we're going to do is report June the 4th, and if they're incarcerated, we're going to be filing our actions in the federal court system.
Reginald, what do you hope your kids take away from this?
I don't know, man. It's hard to say what a kid going to take from any actions like that or anything that take place with a police officer, because they always thought the police was there to protect. But now my daughter is terrified of a police. Every time somebody speak of a cop, she start crying for no reason. So I don't know. It's hard to say about kids these days, man. She's hurt. I think about your life. I think about, Reginald, I think about your life going forward in this small town. Standing up to the police, not only is a risk you might go to jail, but you're going to live there the rest of your life. Are you worried that they're going to keep coming after you if you stand up to them? No matter if I stand up or not, sir, I believe just because of the color of my skin, just like my lawyer told me, they're going to continue to harass and do whatever they can as long as we let them get away with it. That's why I'm standing up now, for maybe to make a stop to something. Put a stop to something, I hope.
I admire what you're doing. This is how America changed, and this is how America will continue to change, is men like you standing up and doing what they believe in and being willing to pay a real price for it. David, we appreciate your work as well. Please come back and update us. June the 4th is the date. We'll be talking to you on the 4th or 5th, all right?
Thank you for having us. We appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you, gentlemen. We'll talk to you soon. Godspeed. Right. The president of Iran died while flying on a 40-year-old American chopper. Here's a question. Would the Iranian president be alive if Iran spent more money on helicopters rather than funding terrorist groups? Looking at a moment of silence right now at the UN Security Council. Watch on the far left-hand side of your screen. There it is. Everybody stood up to honor the Iranian president, including the representatives from the United States. Ibrahim Raisi died in a helicopter crash along with his foreign minister. Here's video of the wreckage. He leaves behind a legacy that earned him the Butcher of Tehran nickname. In 1988, he was involved in the execution of thousands of political prisoners. 2019, U.S. hit him with sanctions for human rights violations. 2020, he presided over the brutal crackdown on the anti-government hijab protests, meaning he cracked down on a massive women's movement. 500 people died, 22,000 were arrested. The regime launched a new crackdown on women's dress codes after that. Amnesty International described it as a war on women that he led. And Tehran was behind, funded, and helped train Hamas terrorists for the October 7th attacks. Yet the State Department, quote, issued this statement: the United States expresses its official condolences for the death of the Iranian President Ibrahim Raisi, Foreign Minister Amir Abdullahian, and other members of their delegation in a helicopter crash in northwest Iran. The statement tracks with U.S. foreign policy as envisioned by President Obama and now carried out by President Biden of engaging Iran as normal actors. If only we engage them and treat them like everybody else, they'll start being better. Hasn't worked so far. Policies, of course, have consequences. Thus, the rise of the Never Bidens. Donors who once worried more about Donald Trump now see the president's bid for a second term as the greater threat to America. That's by Eli Lake. Eli Lake is with us now. Congratulations on your move to the Free Press, my friend. Thank you. Connect, if you would, this rise of people who are really worried about Joe Biden with Iran.
Well, I mean, I would say with Iran, what you're looking at is the number one kind of adversary to America and its allies in the Middle East at this point. It's not America's biggest rival, that's China. It's not Russia, which is kind of a failing state, but it is a real problem, and it poses an existential threat to Israel. Now, I spoke to donors and people who have a lot of money to support political campaigns, and they would be in the category of what might be called the Never Trump, people who maybe weren't Democrats but couldn't support Trump, particularly after January 6th. And, you know, the great quote in that piece was from Cliff Asness, where he said, "My never again is running up against my never Trump," meaning, you know, never again is the statement of never again another Holocaust, another Shoah. And when President Biden on CNN 2 weeks ago basically said that he was going to cut off arms shipments that Israel would need for to complete the operation into Rafah. And by the way, the U.S. has been hamstringing Israel on Rafah for at least 3 months now. I think that there was this last straw that broke the camel's back, so to speak, and that a lot of people who had been watching this shift in the Biden administration policy on Israel saw that interview and said to themselves, "I can't support this guy either."
All right, so we've got the issue of the Biden administration not supporting Israel for domestic political considerations, as if the voters of Minnesota and Michigan somehow will now return to the Biden administration because of the Rafah lack of invasion or holding out against Israel on Rafah. That explains one thing. What I can't figure out, and why I want to have you on, why we're glad to have you on, deep foreign policy experience, why is the Biden administration, without respect to Israel, continuing to cozy up to Iran? That's a different thing.
Well, I think it's just kind of a zombie policy. What you saw is that they did freeze money that they paid for basically ransom to release people that had been detained in Iran after October 7th. And there have been some engagements with what you would call Iranian proxies. But it is a zombie policy. Biden came into office.
What do you mean by zombie policy?
What I mean by that is that he came into office promising to revive the 2015 nuclear deal that happened under Obama when Biden was the vice president. The Iranians have made it abundantly clear they're not really interested in doing anything on the deal. They continue to amass enough enriched uranium eventually that could be used to build a nuke. They are kind of a threshold power at this point. And yet the Biden administration policy is that, with enough incentives and so forth, we can maybe bring this, resuscitate this deal that Trump withdrew from. And so that's the zombie policy. And they don't really have a plan B at this point. And so that, I think, explains it's more of a kind of drift than anything else. That was the big idea for the Democrats for the last 12 years is make a deal with Iran, reset the dynamics of U.S.'s engagement in the region, bring Iran out from under the cold to this nuclear arrangement, and it'll be fine. The only problem with it is that the Iranian regime has purged anybody who might be considered a reformer or a moderate. They are absolutely Islamic fascists in Iran who run that place. They have no interest in any accommodation with the West, and they are not interested in any kind of deal. And that's the problem. That they can't take no for an answer.
You lay out such a minor problem, really. I mean, if but for that, we would have peace, my friend. Hey, Eli, I really appreciate you coming on. It was a great piece in the Free Press that you've moved to. I'd encourage anybody to follow your reporting. One of the best foreign policy reporters, if not the best in the country. Thanks, Eli. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
We wrote a little bit more about this, and the U.S.'s broken-hearted feelings about the death of the Iranian president in War Notes. Warnotes.com to subscribe for free. I'll see you tomorrow. Here's Chris.